Hello and namaste everyone. Thank you very much for taking time to tune in to the To Be Free episodes that we have been presenting for the past 8 months. And we've been focusing on the most important aspects of our lives, which is health, happiness, and harmony, and identifying different ways to achieve those three things. In today's episode, we'll actually get into the crux and very essence of this process, which is healing. Everyone talks about healing these days. Everyone is trying to heal themselves from something, whether it is a physical level, at a mental level, at an emotional level. We all need healing. We all need to move out of our pain and suffering so that we can experience our best self and live a healthy, happy, and harmonious life. Now, today we're going to discuss about the true healing and eliminate any misconceptions, any myths around it, and get directly to the source of healing. In fact, the very essence of yoga, meditation, and all these practices that we've been talking about, the ultimate goal, of course, is a spiritual enlightenment, but another important aspect of that process is healing. So in a way, we can see the connection between enlightenment and healing. When we talk about spirituality, people always think that it is some kind of, an abstract concept and very difficult to understand or very difficult to practice. But let's begin with understanding what exactly is spirituality. In fact, the word spirit comes from a Latin word, spiritus, which means breath. Breath is, of course, our life force, without which this body would collapse, isn't it? If I stop breathing for some time, it leads to the collapse of this body. So the breath is the life force, and spirituality is to really understand the life and the forces behind this life. We have this life that we use from the moment we, of course, enter into a mother's womb, and we grow there, and then we come out into this world, and the life continues on until, of course, this physical body collapses. And of course, we also know that the life in a different form continues after the death. But in very essence, the spirituality means to really understand this life in its fullest form, to go deeper, to understand the source of our origins, of our bodies and minds and thoughts. We all go through some of these existential questions at some point in our life. Why am I here? What is my body? What is this mind? Why am I getting all these thoughts all the time? And of course, we know people go through suffering with the same thoughts. When those thoughts become negative, when those thoughts go and take us on a wild ride, we go through anxiety, we go through depression, we go through emotional suffering and turmoil. So the path of yoga and meditation, even though the ultimate goal is enlightenment and spiritual understanding, it truly ties back to our existence, our bodies, our minds, and of course the spirit, which is the life force itself. So in this process of life, we go through a lot of stress, worries, and trauma. And then, of course, some people have the awareness to take a pause and look at life and make amendments to life so that they can embrace healthy healing habits. And some, of course, they do not even have that awareness, and they'll have to unfortunately wait till the life derails in form of illness and disease, and that becomes a wake-up call. And then they try to amend and take actions to put life back on track, on a healthy path, on a harmonious path, and so that they can ultimately lead a happy life. But for some who have that awareness, of course, we all try to take some steps in form of exercise, changing your diet, doing some yoga stretching, or doing some breathing exercises. All these techniques or simple shifts in lifestyle do help to a certain degree and to a certain extent. But do we really get to the core of healing with these things? Does techniques really get us to the ultimate essence of yoga and meditation, which is a complete holistic healing? And that's what we're going to explore now. Now, as I mentioned, all of these other things that we do, proper diet, proper exercise, proper rest, proper sleep can really put us at a comfortable position to lead a life in a healthier way. But if you really want to heal from some of these illnesses that we have been seeing in the more modern context here, which are the non-communicable diseases like diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disorders, mental illness, the root of all of these is in the mind, in our habits, in our attitudes and patterns. And I know people who make shifts in lifestyle in terms of having, proper eating habits, do some exercise, they go for marathons, they go for running. It's all good at a certain level, but yet at an underlying state of mental and emotional wellness, they suffer a lot. So it is very important we address all of this, the holistic, complete mind, body, spirit healing to really take our life to its peak potential. And for that, we need to really understand where is the source of this healing. And myself, who have been practicing this Sookshma healing meditation for the past 16 years under the guidance and discipleship of this ancient sage Sunita Amma, I have been experimenting with this in the past 16 years. So I really got to the core aspect of healing. And when I came to ancient sage Sunita Amma 16 years back, my health was fragile, my body was weak, I had some stomach problems like IBS, and I had some certain emotional turmoil I was going through at that time. All of this obviously was shaking up my life. And what I've noticed in my first few sessions, within the first 2 or 3 sessions, is that my body started to shift in this meditation. And as I always said, in the past, even before I met Sunita Amma, I used to practice some breathing, some meditation, and some yoga as well. But they haven't really taken me on that healing journey. But here, when I started to practice and experience certain states of mind, my body started to heal. And those states of mind, of course, I've explained in many episodes, is that state of stillness, that state of pure bliss. So I have realized that when our mind comes to that complete stillness and our minds start to experience that state of pure bliss, that is when the body truly starts to heal. And this healing is not dependent on anything from outside. It is dependent on everything from deep inside. And in this journey, of course, I've seen many people who have come to ancient Sunita Amma healed from simple to complex illnesses in this process of Sookshma healing meditation. And in this process, I've really understood the first step in the healing process is not just techniques. It's not just, making changes to some food or, bringing some organic food or going for marathon running. Yes, they all stretch you to some extent. They all do put the body into an exercise mode, but you don't really touch the core of that healing. And I'll help you understand where that core is in a moment. But now, in fact, I still remember there was a demo that Sunita Amma had done a few years back at a conference that was organized here to help people understand the very essence of Sookshma. And what she had done was she's brought this glass jar. It was a nice cylindrical glass jar. It was filled with stones and mud in the bottom. There was water that was poured into the jar, and she put that on the table. And then she said, this is the state of life for most of us. Okay, so filled with mud, filled with stones, dust, all kinds of garbage there. And now, when people go through this, illnesses or traumatic events, what we start to do is immediately, of course, we Google, we find out, there are some techniques, so we throw some techniques in there. And then we say, okay, let's bring organic food. Now that's become very popular. People think organic food can heal everything. Yes, it's very good, of course. I take organic food as well. But you will get to the essence of this in a moment. So you throw some nuts, you throw some raisins, you're throwing some oats. You're like, okay, all of this is going to make my life better. And then at the end of the demo, Sunita Amma shows that yes, this jar is there. You're throwing all these things in form of techniques and some practices and then some organic food. And of course, you try to cover yourself up with other stuff, on your face or your body, by clothing and all that, show off stuff that we do. But unfortunately, the mud, the stones, the pebbles, and the dirt is still sitting in the underlying layer, and we never get to clean from the core. Those things that we have done are just a patchwork. It's almost like you're applying a band-aid to an underlying cancer, and we expect our life to run smooth and perfect. People go through all these practices, still end up in cancer, still end up with some autoimmune disorders. And the reason is that you haven't gone to the core aspect of cleaning the subconscious mind, and that is where Sookshma becomes a very, very powerful tool to clean that subconscious. In fact, the word Sookshma itself is subtle, and we've talked about a little bit in the past that our existence here has different dimensions to it. We have a physical dimension, that's the body, which is a gross body, which is called Sthula Sarira in Sanskrit language. And then there is a subtle body, which is called the Sookshma Sarira. Sookshma is made up of your mind, which is thoughts, emotions, subconscious mind, memory, your life forces. All of these come under that Sookshma Sarira. And then there is also the third one, which is called the Karana Sarira, which is the causal body. It's almost, you can call it like the seed of the Sookshma and the Sthula Sarira. The seed is where our origins are stored, just like a seed. Like you have a mustard seed that sits in your kitchen. The source is there in the seed. The moment you throw it in the right place at the right time with water and manure and soil, it starts to sprout. Exactly like that, our causal body or Karana Sarira is the seed, and that seed has certain impressions in it. How does a mustard seed know to become a mustard plant? How does, for example, fenugreek seed know that it has to become a fenugreek plant? So there is a certain encoding in that dictates that seed to become something. Similarly, in our causal body or the Karana Sarira, there is a seed, and this seed is made up of something called gunas. We'll talk about this in another episode potentially. We'll go a little bit deeper into that. But these gunas are what dictates our behavior ultimately. These are characterized by ancient wisdom as sattva, rajas, and tamas. And these are different qualities based on which our personalities are created. And these qualities are again stored based on your actions in this lifetime. The way you perform your actions, the way you process your thoughts. So your gross body, your subtle body, and then your causal body. So it's like going back and forth. So what you perform here goes back into that causal body, into that seed, just like a plant, right? When you have a tree, whatever happens in the tree goes into the seed, isn't it? From the tree, the branches, the leaves, the flowers, the fruit, and then the seed. And then the seed again comes back, and then whatever is stored in that impressions of that seed becomes the source for the new sprout to come up and then the plant to form. Same thing here. Whatever we performing here in this lifetime, all those things, including our actions, including our thoughts, including our health, all of these go back and withdraw into that causal body. Now, enough of causal body. It's a very fascinating topic. I would like to go another time. And again, this causal body is connected to the higher consciousness, that universal cosmic energy, which we'll talk about another time. Now, come back to the Sookshma, because this is what is needed now in this moment. Causal body, yes, that's like even more further down for enlightenment and where you completely become pure consciousness. Now, in this lifetime, we all want health, we all want wellness, we all want healing, and that needs to happen at this subtle body level, that Sookshma Sarira, that Sookshma level, because that is where we are accumulating all these impurities in form of our thoughts, in form of the vices we talk about, all the 6 vices, the excess anger, excess desire, excess greed, jealousy, false ego, pride. All of these are sitting in that subtle layer, and outwardly we are using this body, but every action goes back into that subtle body, and everything that is imprinted in that subtle body or that Sookshma Sarira or that subtle layer comes back into our physical body. So every disease and illness which is an outcome of our lifestyle and thoughts and behaviors is rooted in your Sookshma Sarira. And that is what happens in Sookshma meditation, is that cleansing of the Sookshma or subtle layer is what happens. As that subtle layer is cleansed, there is something fascinating that happens. This mind, which is constantly going here, there and everywhere, disturbed, perturbed, distracted, scattered, suddenly starts to come into a state of stillness. And that stillness state is where the body starts to heal. You see, first, cleaning is the core of healing, and the process is that silent mind. That silent mind is the whole mind. What we have in our day-to-day life is a broken mind. When our mind is broken into pieces and pieces, which is pulled in zillion directions with different types of vices filled in it, how can we expect true healing to happen, my dear friends? So true healing happens when we come into that state of silence. And that silence creates what is called a whole mind. Of course, that whole mind leads to the whole person healing. And that silent mind, what happens in that silent mind is it starts to experience bliss. Now, where is this bliss? Where was it hidden all this time? And for that, we'll take another little detour here to understand body as again described by ancient wisdom. We saw it one level as subtle body, gross body, and causal body. Now there is another 5 aspects to this body or the existence. And these 5 are classified as 5 koshas or layers. It's like, you have your physical body, what we see as a whole, and then in the medical realm, we look at it at a organ level, that's the second level, and then we look at a tissue level, that's the third level, and then you go down further into a cellular level, that's a 4th level. And then of course, if you go further down, you look at the biochemical pathways and all of these other things. So there are different layers, right? When we examine a body, when a person goes to a doctor, a physician, they look at you at a different level to identify what's going on. Similarly, the entire life itself can be understood and analyzed when we understand these 5 layers or 5 levels of our existence. And the first one is easy to understand, which is called the pranamaya, annamaya. Annamaya is your physical body. Anna is food. The physical body is made up of food, right? So that's your annamaya. And then the second one is pranamaya, which is your life force, right? The life force which acts based on your breathing is the source of life in this physical body. So that is pranamaya kosha. And then the third one is manomaya. Mano means manas means mind. The mind which is made up of your thoughts and emotions. And again, that is where a lot of work needs to be done for healing. We'll talk about that in a second. We talked about that in the subtle body, right? Same thing. This manas has to be cleansed and purified. And then the 4th one is Vijnanamaya Kosha, the layer of intellect, the layer with which we make a discrimination of right and wrong. That Vijnana, that real wisdom layer is the 4th layer. And then the 5th and the last is your Anandamaya Kosha. Ananda means bliss, that layer of bliss. Where is it? It's right here. It is right here. And again, these layers doesn't mean that you can peel layer after layer. It's not as simple as that. It's an embodiment of our entire life itself, of the life forces itself. And of course, physically we know this Annamaya Kosha exists, but these are subtler layers which are not directly tangible with your obviously hands or fingers or a microscope. So the last one is what is very important in healing. That is the layer of bliss. And my dear friends, Sookshma healing meditation takes one straight to that layer of bliss. Now, Sunita Amma worked with a lot of Ayurvedic physicians in the past, people in the research area in the field of Ayurveda. They talk a lot about all these different koshas, and what they have really understood with her work is that Sookshma takes straight to the Anandamaya kosha. And they said, we try to do a lot of healing, of course, through medications, through herbs, through other, practices in Ayurvedic medicine or through yoga therapy. They all act at a physical level, that is Annamaya kosha. Some act at a Pranamaya kosha, which is your life force. And to some extent, maybe at a Manomaya kosha, which is very difficult. I'm telling you, mind is the most trickiest thing and the most difficult thing. We all know that. And now to work on that, to catch that and heal that is not an easy process. And only a self-realized or an enlightened soul can really see through that and understand those fluctuations, the subtleties of that mind, and can really tweak that. Tweak in the sense you're not tricking it or anything. All the tweaking is the cleaning aspect. That cleaning has to be done. And that's where maximum most of these, the physicians or the doctors or Ayurvedic doctors are working at that level. What they've said is that Sookshma actually works straight on the bliss or that Anandamaya kosha. So it's a very inside out approach rather than outside in approach. It starts from there. And what I've seen is, when I've seen these people who come to Sookshma meditation, they lie down and they're meditating, and then within one meditation there is a shift in them. Within 2-3 meditations, they become fully energized, they become fully charged, and they just want to go do things which they were not able to do. I've seen people who were scared of driving were able to drive. People who thought they were going to die, they are like so fragile and weak, got up and walk and start doing things on their own. And I've seen within my own family, my mother, my father, who had very fragile health in the past, have completely rebounded and started to lead life in a phenomenal way. So all of these I've been to witness, and we are now also working on some of these research studies to really get to the core of this and understand how it actually impacts. Now, what exactly happens in Sookshma is that ultimate healing. That ultimate healing happens because now we talked about bliss, which is your Anandamaya kosha. And we also talked about the 3 layers, Sthula, Sookshma and Karana Sharira. Now, coming back to these 3 layers, what happens is, beyond causal layer, there is what is called the consciousness layer. What is that consciousness? That consciousness is that pure vibration of energy which is there everywhere. Ancient wisdom says omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. In fact, everything that is happening in this universe is happening in that field of consciousness. There is 3 processes: creation, sustenance and destruction. All the 3 are happening in this universe at that consciousness layer. It's almost like everything is coming out and everything is going back into that consciousness. Evolution and involution. Evolution and involution. But we never are aware of that consciousness layer. That's the vibration of energy which is beyond the physical level, which is beyond the mental level, which is beyond the emotional level. And even if you look at our body, for example, we talked about how the modern medicine looks at it till cellular level. But now if you further go down into cells, it is made up of calcium, potassium, sodium, right? All these elements that we eat. From the periodic table we studied in chemistry, we have all these things. Now, beyond that, of course, those molecules are made up of atoms. Those atoms are made up of electrons, protons, and neutrons. We study them in physics. And now if you go further down, what we are finding in the modern scientific research in the field of quantum physics and theoretical physics, there are different models that are coming out of that. And what they are actually understanding is that the atom is actually made up of 90 to 95% of space, empty space. The actual particle is only a little bit, which contributes to the weight of the atom. So the weight of the atom is actually from that space, that emptiness, that nothingness. But what they're also seeing is that nothingness is actually a field of bubbling potential energy. from where these electrons and other subatomic particles are being created. You see this? In fact, there is a fantastic book called Universe from Nothing that came out a few years back. But of course, the ancient yogic wisdom, the great ancient Sanatana Dharma has been talking about that it all starts from nothing and goes back to nothing. And this is what Sunita always says. If you truly want to heal, first you have to become nothing. How do we become nothing? You can't just become nothing like that, because there is these thoughts and emotions that keep haunting us. There is this deep identification with this body, all the false ego that we develop. I am beautiful, I am handsome, I am tall, I am this, I am that, I am an actor, I am a director, I am a sportsman, I am a CEO. See, with all these false identifications, with all that havoc that we keep running this mind through, do you think we can really ever get to the core of healing, my dear friends? Unless we start to clear this and get to that state of nothingness. That state of nothingness is where the consciousness is. That consciousness is that subtle vibration of energy. Now, can you touch it? No, you cannot touch it. Can you taste it? You cannot taste it. In fact, the great ancient Upanishads say it is beyond the five senses. But yet, all of these are within that. You see the beauty of it? Consciousness is everywhere, and all of these things that are happening are activities in that consciousness, but consciousness doesn't ever get touched or affected by this. So which means we all have the ability to get in touch with that. And this is where, with my 16 years of journey, I'm telling you, my dear friends, Sookshma is the way, direct access to that purest of the pure vibration, subtlest of the subtle states, where we can get in touch with that consciousness, where that energy is that field of magnetic field, that electromagnetic field starts to change our biochemistry. Once the biochemistry changes, the cellular levels change, and once the cells change, the tissues reformat, and once the tissues reformat, your organs start to heal. You know, today we are talking about regenerative medicine in the modern context, which is all great, but I've seen people being healed and their organs being cleaned and purified and completely transform their life through this. Because when your body enters into that complete state of silence and bliss, into that state of nothingness, that's when we get into a state called homeostasis, a state of perfect equilibrium. In fact, in the layman's terms, Sunita says, our cells start to sprout again. You know how to make sprouts? When you soak the seeds and then lentils, and then you start to see sprouts after a day or two, they start to get those little sprouts. Same thing happens in Sookshma. In Sookshma, your cells start to sprout. And we see people who practice Sookshma, they look young. They don't look their age, because it is defying your aging system as well. And there is actually scientific research to show how meditation actually can reverse aging. It can slow down aging by at least 10 to 15 years. You might be growing chronologically, but biologically, your cells will remain healthiest, because there is constant healing, because you are constantly in that subtle state of vibration of energy. You're constantly accessing that subtle states. So the healing becomes permanent. So, my dear friends, remember, true healing happens first with cleaning of your mind, subconscious mind. Next, silence. Third, bliss. Fourth, very important, whole mind. Not scattered and distracted mind, whole mind. And finally, you become one with that consciousness. And when you become one with that consciousness, there is a flow in life. There are no constraints. The way we lead our life impacts our body. We live in what is called contraction love. We limit everything to I, my, mine. We don't have that expansion love. Expansion love heals. Expansion is becoming open, unconditional openness. Sunita always talks about this. Unconditional openness, with which whatever little you can do for others, for yourself, of course, first thing, self-care, self-love, and then unconditional openness to others as well. That expansion leads to flow. When you are in that flow, in that state of nothingness, in that state of silence, you will reach bliss, and that bliss heals. So please reflect on that. Start to find ways to experience that. Even as I am speaking, I am experiencing that subtle state of bliss. It becomes part of you. You don't have to even go find it somewhere. You just drop into it. This is called Sahaja Sthiti. I have been witness to this ancient Sri Sunita Amma, who is in that state all the time. You just have to close your eyes, bring that smile, and pay attention to your heart. Yes, do all your exercises, do all your yoga practices, do all your pranayamas. Yes, I have done all that in the morning. Now it is evening. But yet, I am able to tune into this. I am in that state of bliss. I am speaking from that state of consciousness. I don't want to speak. I want to remain silent. I have to force myself to speak because I want to share this with everyone in the world. Same thing with Sunita Amma. In silence, in silence. What do I prefer? Silence. Ananda. Bliss. Let go everything. Drop all that stuff from the past. Drop all the things and worries about the future. Going deeper and deeper inside. Paying attention to your breath. Spreading that smile. Whole body is relaxed. Your mind is purifying. Your inner self is awakened. Your heart is filled with love for yourself. Just give that affirmation if you don't feel it. I love you. I respect you. I'll take care of you. Physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Take out your name and give that affirmation, please. No one can stop you from doing that. Let us stop blaming others. See what action you can take for you, not for others, for your inner self. You cannot change others, but you can change yourself. We hear this, we read about this, we process it in your intellect, but are you putting into practice? Unless you work on yourself, there is no solace. You cannot attain health, happiness, and harmony unless you give time for yourself, unless you dive into yourself, unless you explore yourself, examine yourself, eliminate all the impurities one by one. Like you weed away all the weeds in your garden, weed them away one by one. Do I have any anger? Examine. Eliminate right now. Do I have excess desire for material things? For sensual pleasures? Remove, eliminate right away. Right now. Am I jealous of others? Examine. You are the best judge. Eliminate that. Don't leave that smile, my dear friends. Be with yourself. Let go of any distractions. Going deeper and deeper inside. Examine. Eliminate. Every elimination will empower you. Take charge. I don't need this. I don't need that. I only want to get to the source. The source of healing. Your mind and body are very tightly integrated, my dear friends. We all think somebody is not watching, no one is knowing what I'm thinking, they don't know what I'm doing. We hide. We don't see a physical God, so we think we can just escape. We think parents are not seeing, so we can do this blunder mistakes. But let me tell you, your body is watching. Every thought, every emotion, it's registering inside. Your nervous system and your immune system. First line of defenses. they get impacted with your thoughts. Weaker nervous system, weaker immune system. We know the consequences. 99% of the illness that we are seeing in the world today can be healed and eliminated with wellness from within. A doctor can only treat your symptoms. You have to treat from the source. It is not that easy to manage the mind. That's why you need ancient sages who have mastered the process. To be with them, to learn from them, to experience them. Effortlessly you will enlighten, empower. So many ancient sages, if you look at our ancient scriptures, they have done this. Going deeper and deeper inside. Let go. And stay there for however long you want. Be with yourself. Eliminate weeds. Constant integrated awareness. Moment to moment awareness. Taking each moment at a time.